What we were most worried about before we joined Lionheart, we knew we did not know. We knew that there was things that she could be doing and a plan that people had in the way they approached these things in terms of college, in terms of like strategizing about what to do for college. But we knew we did not know what those things were. We had an idea, like good grades or that kind of thing, but beyond that, we just didn't have a good idea of what that looked like, or I did.
The things I was most worried about, I think, before we joined Lionheart was the idea of whether we were starting too early. We had ideas around how we would like for her to be prepared, but we weren't being more intentional around it at her age. I was a little weary not to put too much pressure. I wasn't exactly sure if it was the right timing. Should we wait another year? But I always love getting information and being prepared a couple of years in advance, so I joined the call, and you all were kind enough to really just kind of share with us like, "Hey, walk with us now. Let's think about what it could look like now," and I think it was the best decision for us. In terms of her academic journey, I think we were both intentional that we wanted to make sure that she went to a school that was a thoughtful school that had some rigor, but had also the resources in order to support the rigor. And so we were very intentional around that. And we wanted to make sure that our role was such that we were supporting her academic journey, not necessarily introducing and teaching. We learned that over the remote time that we spent with her in 2021 and 2020, that we were not necessarily her best teachers. So we wanted to be in the support role, and part of what we learned kind of over time as she continued in third, fourth, and fifth grade, we still learned we needed to be just as active, just as involved, but we still want to maintain that role. And leadership was something that we noticed was a skill or a quality that she was going to need to have as she continued to navigate through the school, because the school that she's in really does give them a lot of autonomy around curriculum choice. And as they get older, they get more and more autonomy and independence. And so now we were like, oh, how do we continue to make sure that she's getting what she needs? And listening to Lionheart's philosophy around helping guide students was exactly what we were looking for. I mean, it's essentially giving her tools so that she can navigate her academic space with leadership, right? And really thinking about what's best for her, planning long term a bit, and thinking a little bit about what that looks like. And I think that that just has been really helpful for us. And it allows us to maintain that spot that we want to kind of sit in.
Moment that I recognize something is different with Brooklyn is when she was working with you all on her work and made connections and made a breakthrough about how she connected her personal interests to her identity and then to who she wanted to be. And she was just really excited about it.
Yeah.
Like, really, like, over the moon. Like, "Oh, I can see the path forward," and that really stuck out to me as a big moment for her.
I would say, as a parent, what shifted for us looking at her growth assessment was really just understanding kind of the role we would end up playing, but also how we can have an influence that isn't a distraction to the work. What the growth assessment allows for us to do is also watch and see how she's kind of growing. And so we don't get ahead of ourselves. I think it also gives us a little bit of comfort to know that like these things are coming up or these are the things you all are working on. And that comfort allows for us not to kind of have almost like false urgency sometimes around a skill set that we are looking for her to have, or ownership over something that we want her to have. We're able to kind of take a step back and say, oh, okay, this is coming, right? So even for us, having a little bit more of a growth mindset around how she approaches her work And really, we ask the questions all the time, like, what are other ways we could motivate? And you all are like, self motivation. Yes, we want to celebrate wins and celebrate effort and celebrate process. And that is very helpful for us to kind of see because I do think that me in particular, sometimes I can even be impatient with my own growth. And so being mindful of not to necessarily do that with her because there is a plan in place and you can kind of follow it. I also noticed too the way that her school also wants her to kind of demonstrate some executive function skills. When we first started, she was doing a little bit of it, but that we were always checking behind her. And one of the things that's happened now is that she definitely has taken a lot more ownership around her planner, around her assignments, even sometimes the timing of when she needs to get things done, which is something that the school is introducing because of her grade. So she's not supposed to have it down, but I definitely can see like a different approach to things as a result of being part of the program. So it is helpful for us because again, we get to take that support role, but we also probably we're more mindful about the urgency, right? And I believe that urgency also creates sometimes undue pressure. But when she feels that she's got a skill down and then is demonstrating it, or has some support in like how she might develop it or has a sense of her identity now that's tied to how she may apply. I mean, she may like focus on her work. It's like she's doing it and it feels slightly more effortless, which is something I think we really appreciate. We were talking about this the other day.
How has our college admissions journey changed? I think kind of drastically, I would say. It's changed just because this idea that Brooklyn would be leading it is wonderful, wonderful feeling. And to see her growth in these areas that will lead her to that, it's everything that we really wanted to happen. Like, we wanted her to be able to take the reins and determine her own path. So that's what I would say.
Yeah. One thing I'll add, you all have said 2 things that have changed the way that I look at the admissions process, which is I think in the first introductory call or the orientation call, like Nicole said, that essentially once they have determined what they'd like to do, identified some schools or the school that they think would be a good fit for that essentially the work is preparing yourself to be the student that the school recognizes as like, "Oh, you are the student that belongs here." Right? And so this idea that she's not applying kind of hoping that, "Oh, I hope this will be the school." And I feel like that's how I was. It's like I had this idea of a school I wanted that school for whatever the reason was, and I was hoping that they would see me as someone who could fit or belong and or be a good fit for that institution, and the shift for me is like, "Oh, she is going to do that work on the front end about what it is she likes to do and what's the best environment for her, identify those places, and then create a profile for herself that really kind of reflects that, and that would feel more authentic, and being on this side at my work, we see that all the time. I know almost right away the type of resume or experiences someone might have that would be a great fit for our institution. You almost know it instinctually because they've done particular things, they approach the work in a particular way, they've demonstrated certain skill sets to really thrive, and not every environment is for everyone. So that has been fantastic. I mean, just that shift, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, that makes sense." And also this again, that idea that she was going to I think in one of the sessions where she had a breakthrough, Nicole shared the session with us so that we could see the breakthrough happen, which was amazing. So fascinated by the platform that was being used. I mean, it was just great. And one of the things Nicole told her was that she's gonna have to learn to teach herself, and that's a skill that she's going to have to learn over time. Like, sometimes you're gonna have really great teachers, and they're gonna teach you really well, and sometimes you're not, but you still have to learn the material. So, you'll have to do that in college as well. I mean, it was just like a light bulb that went off in my head where I was like, yeah, I did not learn that until law school. And so the fact that she kind of knows that now and approaches, you can see when she's doing her work, you can see her trying to figure things out and not being like so defeated right away. 'Cause there's this sense she has to teach, so she knows she has to go to her teachers if she has a question or she doesn't understand something, and to see that reflected now in her report card where her teacher was really complimentary that she comes to the office hours at school and stuff like that to understand. So, I mean, that also was just absolutely amazing. Yeah.
What we would want other parents that are at the beginning of the process or before they're starting to know. I think that the benefit of not having your hand on everything is massive. It's a massive benefit, and that with your child leading, you can essentially focus on all the other things to just support them in their journey. So that was huge, and I think that anybody signing up or anybody thinking about signing up, like, that to me is the biggest benefit.
Yeah. If you are a parent who's worried about time and thinking that your student may not or your child may not have time for something like this, I would say it's probably a wise idea to rethink the way that they spend their time. I do think that we're in a culture of busy being busy and wanting to make sure that we expose our kids to as many activities and as many things as possible so that they can find their passion. And I would imagine, or find where they fit, what makes them kind of feel self motivated. And I would say we did that early on. She was in lots of different things, whether that's in the arts and the sciences. We just tried to expose her as much as we possibly could. But as soon as we started to see that she on her own was leaning in particular directions, we kind of started to streamline our focus. And what Lionheart has taught us is that that was a good idea to do, because now that she's kind of joining and she's thinking about what she would like to work on over a long period of time. And I think that requires some either intellectual curiosity, it requires a connection to the work in some kind of way. And it's best if it's intrinsic and not something that has been put upon by their parents. And so, yes, the exposure is good, but I do think that there needs to be a transition. I think Lionheart can help you with that transition, helping students identify where they have intrinsic kind of motivation and what that could look like, and not to have fear around the idea that they may take a subject or take an interest and do something beautiful with it. Um, that may not look like, and I'm telling on myself here, doctor, lawyer, engineer, right? It may not look like that, but the experience of taking an idea from start to finish and thinking about the process of that and learning and owning that, the confidence that that will build can be applied to anything hard as they go forward. And so lots of those lessons are learned in various things. I think sports is one that folks have. You can learn those lessons through. But I do think if you are looking to really curate their academic experience so that they are prepared for a rigorous college program, potentially, right? Where they will be navigating on their own. Lionheart is really, like, you all are really the best place for students to be able to do a little bit of that practice and get those skills under their belt and gain the confidence, right? To eventually be on your own and doing that work on your own and by yourself when you're in college. So I think time is a resource you have to kind of think about. We don't have much of it. And if they're scattered, I think it's nice for you to start to think about the process to honing some of those interests in order to give them the time to really build something out and see themselves build something from start to finish. And I think that process should be guided. I had no idea that we would even be thinking about that at this stage. But now, with the time that we have, we're excited to see what she might be able to develop and do. And so we've made time for it. And I think that it's time absolutely well spent.
100%. So for parents who think that they should allow their kid to be a kid, I don't fault them for that. It makes sense that they should be able to do that. Our experience with Lionheart is that none of it to Brooklyn feels like a burden.
Yeah.
She loves to go on and interact and talk about all these things and learn about herself and learn about what she could be doing. And I think that she would choose to do it. We're not in a situation where we're forcing her to
Yeah.
do any of it. She's taking the initiative herself and working on the ideas and excited about them. So it feels like not burdensome.
What I really like about the way that Brooklyn also meets with the coaches is that you take it incrementally as opposed to what I was prepared to do or what you hear from other, I think, and other families, which is like, oh, 11th grade is so tough and 10th grade is so tough. And there's all this pressure that is put on the last couple of years or the last 3 years of high school, or I guess. And so being able to do this in incrementally and for her to like tap into something and do the work that really I don't know feels like work to her. She's really excited to have conversations to talk about her favorite books and plays that she's seen and this and that. And like while she's doing that is essentially doing the work. Initially, I think it allows for this to be more incremental and not kind of all pushed and squeezed into a shorter time frame when in fact, the work also in school becomes more rigorous, right? There's more volume in high school, more things that they're managing. I think that being able to say, we've got a plan and we've set this aside for this time and place once a week or whatever the schedule may be, at least rest assures everyone that it's being worked on and it can be worked on incrementally as opposed to all at once. I don't know how much black on black. No, I'm just.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of it. Lionheart is different because, like, Brooklyn's experience with Nicole is like talking to her aunt. It's like talking to her family, essentially. And her experience with that, she was just on board
Yeah.
from the beginning, and her like, most things we would have to kind of nudge her, push her to do in these directions, and we were a little bit worried that, oh, maybe she would also feel this way about the coaching, but none of that happened. The exact opposite happened. She's
Yeah.
excited, she's into it, so it feels like a great fit.
Yeah. It's wonderful to hear the laughing, the laughter coming out of her room that she takes the call and just all the laughter. And she sees herself in Nicole. She sees us in the other members of the team. And I think that she also feels like her experience is not all that unique. I remember she mentioned to someone at school, oh, I got a college coach. We were like, "What?" And we talked to a couple of other families about it, and I'm sure they'll be in touch with you all. But I think that one of the things that she's so proud about it, but I think she's proud because she sees herself, and she's at a school where she is not the majority. She does go to an all girls school, so at least there is that one identity. I think that she is able to really kind of flush out. But otherwise, not all of it is her whole self isn't kind of necessarily seen there, and not that it should, but it is really nice for her to have these one-on-one conversations, be in a group setting with other students, and see herself and see her experience reflected in other students whose parents or whose families are also focused. And I think at the end of the day, we want her to feel prepared, and what Lionheart has kind of done for us is actually put a plan in place for Brooklyn to want that for herself. And quite frankly, that's something I don't think we expected, is that she's essentially preparing herself, that initiative, that independence, so that she can eventually be autonomous when it comes to whatever it is she wants to do is gives us a lot of joy to kind of watch because ultimately that's what we're hoping for.
Yeah, I'd also like to add we were big into curating our environments, like the school that she's in or the activities that she's in. We were in a situation where we would create a path and then she'd go down the path, but we want the environment to be just so she would have a certain experience. And the idea that Lionheart creates the scaffolding around this leadership experience and allows her to do it very curated, which completely aligns with the way that we think.
Yeah.